there's Tod. This is a little unexpected. Tod Machover is an old pal of the conference and an old pal of mine.
So good to see you.
Tod is with the Media Lab in Boston and is a composer and musician and a creator of oddball musical instruments.
That's a way to put them. Yes.
Yeah, and it turns out that he's been commissioned by the TSO to write a symphony for Toronto. The debut will be in March of 2013, and he has a special role for you. Take it away, Tod.
Thanks so much, Moses. Hello, everybody. Great to see you. And as Moses says, I do a lot of things in music and technology, but this is exciting to be here today because we're just launching a brand new project. It turned out that this conference is the exact day. So you're the first people officially to hear. Actually, we gave a little announcement on the CBC this morning, on Metro Morning, but you're the first people to hear about this project and actually to hear a little bit of it. So the project itself is called A Toronto Symphony, and as Moses says, the Toronto Symphony, the great orchestra in this town, asked me to write a piece for next year, and in my oddball way, I decided that what interested me most was to invite the entire city to write it with me. So that's including you. You can't get out of here without writing a few notes. So let me tell you about it. That's what we're here to do today. So I have explored the possibilities for the future of music in many different ways. I grew up, my mom's a pianist, my father is a technologist, and I've always been interested in the possibility of technology and augmenting musical expression and creation. So one of the first things I did was to invent a technology called hyperinstruments. This is yo-yo ma, as you can recognize. For a hyperinstrument, the instrument has all kinds of smart technology in it. It understands not just what's being played, but how it's being played. So the musician, as he changes his or her expression, the cello or any instrument can turn from a cello into a voice, into a clarinet, into something you've never heard before, into a whole orchestra, just through the interpretation. After we made instruments like that, I realized that very similar technology that we were using for the cello for Yo-Yo Ma could be used for anybody to make music. So the way you use your bow was also something that could measure gesture. So the instrument we made after this cello for yo-yo was a chair for Bono, actually. That's called a sensor chair. You sit in it, electricity runs through your body. It does this to your hair is one problem, but besides that, the electricity allows the chair to know where you are, and instead of playing a cello, you just move, and that makes sophisticated music. We made a whole orchestra of these kind of instruments called the Brain Opera. It was opened in Lincoln Center about 15 years ago, toured the world, is now permanently in Vienna. After that, I got interested in designing this kind of instrument for kids. Actually, when my two kids were tiny, David, I guess, is a new father. I'm a slightly older father. My daughter graduated from high school last Sunday, so it's kind of... But when she was a pipsqueak, we decided to try to make instruments so that she and all her friends would fall in love with music first by squeezing an instrument like this or tapping a little beat bug or drawing on a screen, fall in love with music first and then ask their parents for music lessons rather than being forced to take music lessons and somewhere down the line maybe like music. So we did a whole project called Toy Symphony. You might know these two things, Guitar Hero and Rock Band, which grew out of my lab at MIT because of all this work in measuring performers and trying to make this technology available to the general public. So the idea seemed like a pretty good one, but there's so much more to do. So now we work a lot in health, developing the same kind of music technology that can either diagnose illness. We actually have a new technique, a set of music games that seem to detect Alzheimer's disease earlier than any other technique, technologies that allow people who can't express themselves any other way to do so through music. And we do everything from that to making operas with robots. So my last opera, half the characters are human, half the characters are robots. This was for the Monaco Opera. So we cover a huge range. In all of these projects, I try to touch on what are called the 4 E's, which turn out to be not so easy to coordinate all together. The first is excellence, just to make musical experiences that are absolutely as fantastic as they come, beautifully made, beautifully performed, knock you out of your chair. At the same time, I don't know why, but ever since I'm a kid, the kind of sounds I hear in my head are usually not exactly the same as everybody else's. So one of the great things about music or any other form is simply to push it forward and to find things that nobody else has found before. So it's important to do that as well. It's important to do this in a way that is joyful and actually reaches out to people and is an entertaining experience, not just an intellectual one. And I've always believed it's incredibly important to do this in a way so that there isn't a huge boundary between the musicians on stage, and everybody in the audience. What are the ways that we can make all of these things fit together so that people really feel like they're participating? If you do that, it really leads to a totally different ecology, a totally different connection between the people at the top of the profession, the students, kids, people who just love music, all somehow working together. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in this new project. So the partners are the Toronto Symphony Orchestra and the MIT Media Lab where I work. Many of you may know every March, usually in March, the Toronto Symphony runs a festival called New Creations. They came to me about 9 months ago to see if I'd be willing to work with them for the upcoming festival in 2013 to curate and bring together a bunch of works about the future of the orchestra. And they asked me to think about writing a piece for this festival. So when they asked me that, I thought that to me, all of these qualities together, the most exciting thing I could do was to find a way that the piece wasn't just my piece played by the orchestra on stage for a bunch of people listening to it for the first time, but to use this as a real laboratory to see if we could actually share not just information about the piece, but really making the piece from scratch. So that's the idea, to write this piece really with as many people in Toronto as are willing to get involved. And if we'll pull down the lights, I have a little video to show you what this is going to feel like, and then we'll give you an example. So let me roll the video. I'm Tod Machover, and I'm very happy to invite you to participate in an exciting new project called A Toronto Symphony. We're doing something pretty unusual. We're going to make a new symphony. We're inviting everybody in the city of Toronto to collaborate with me over the coming months to shape this symphony, to make the music, and to create it together. Toronto is one of the most international cities in the world, has every idea, every kind of person, every nationality, every sound that you can imagine. And one thing that's always struck me about Toronto is how it combines this complexity with an incredible sense of order and beauty as well. I've started off this process by imagining a kind of shape and picture of a Toronto Symphony. We'll use this as a way to imagine this symphony together. I'm going to send out requests for different kinds of sounds, different kinds of melodies, different kinds of music, and I'm hoping that as many people as possible will send things back to me. I'm going to sit down and make some of this material as well. Sometimes it'll be chords, sometimes it'll be melodies, sometimes it'll be sounds, sometimes it'll be a section of a piece, and I'll send it out to all of you so you can let me know what you think, and also so that you can vary it, you can tweak it, you can add to it. We're going to take sessions over the coming months, every few weeks, and together we'll shape this clay into final sections of the piece that we all like. So I invite you all to participate. Let's begin. So let me show you a little bit about how this works. We have a really special treat today, which is joining me on stage. I'd now like to invite 8 musicians from the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. If they're there, do we have musicians in the wings? Yeah. So Yao Guangzhe, Sam Banks, Gay Bradford, Amanda Goodburn, Sydney Chun, Eric Nowlin, Emmanuel Bergeron, and Jeff Beecher. Big hand. So as you may, how many people were at Mahler's 8th last night? Well, the rest of you have to go tonight. Great concert over at Roy Thompson Hall. So these guys have been very busy, and it's incredibly nice that they're here with us today. Originally, what I'd planned for the show today was to work with everybody, and actually, we made an app for any mobile device, which would have allowed all of you to actually change the graphics live on stage to influence the way they were playing. And it actually works, but it turns out there's no Wi-Fi in this room, as you might have noticed. So we couldn't do that. But we are going to show you how we make music together. So what I did is I decided that as a kind of prequel to sending out the invitation to the entire city, I sent it out to the orchestra. And these 8 wonderful people responded and said they'd love to take part. So that's the score. You can see each section shows how different people contribute. What I did about a week ago was I made a set of chords. Chords are like a skeleton of a piece of music. Each chord has a kind of personality, and together the chords kind of tell a story, but it's very basic. So I made these chords and sent them to these guys. And I said, what would be great is if you would respond to these chords, maybe make new chords, change my chords, write melodies around the chords. And in fact, they did send many wonderful things back to me. So first, maybe what we'll do is show you what these chords sound like. So if we want to go from the beginning, let's see, I don't want to step on the monitor here. We'll just play the beginning of the chord. For those of you who read music, we're going to play up to the first bar line there. So they're the basic chords. You've got to remember those. How many can remember all those chords? So I sent this out, said send me things back. So some things I got back were in Chinese, actually, so I had to figure out how to read that. This is an example of kind of a melody written over my chords that Yao did. This is what Eric, the violist, wrote, which is kind of rhythmic, interesting, with accents written around that music. So you want to play a few measures? I won't even conduct you. Let's say from measure 14. Awesome. But I also got back some really, that was interesting, not what I expected, which is exactly what I was looking for. But I got back some really crazy things. I don't want to know about crazy, but Sam, the bassoonist, and again, I don't know how many of you are musicians, if you're a bassoonist, you know this is like unbelievably difficult to play, but he wrote this part for himself. So I'm going to make him play it now for you. So this is Sam's riff off of my chords. So you want to just give him an idea what that sounds like? Wow. So I was just blown away. What they sent me was so fantastic. So I spent last weekend taking their material, thinking about these chords, and putting together what we're going to play for you now. This is a combination of the chords, moves into a section where I've taken everything that people sent to me and mixed it together like a salad, kind of surprising stuff, really, really interesting. And there's a third thing that I did, which is just like the app I was going to give you. There are also sections that pop up where you'll notice my right hand will stop, and we make up the music together. So there are a bunch of different instructions. You can see here, one says dreamy, one says cadenzas, one says majestic. When we get there, you've got the notes of the chord, but exactly the notes you play, exactly the riffs you play are different each time, and the musicians play off each other, and they look at me, and it's quite a lot of fun. Maybe we'll show you quickly just a few seconds of dreamy. So if we go to measure 55, if I'm not mistaken, will sound very different from what you just heard, but I thought I'd just give you a little idea. Measure 55. Next time. So now we're going to play this for you. Just a few minutes, but it's an example of how I sent out some music. These guys thought about it, sent it back to me. We've been back and forth. We just spent 2 hours rehearsing it and shaping this for you. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to grow into an activity with as many people as possible. So let's take it from the top. And actually, so you're not distracted, just the players. You heard it first, and they're all my co-composers now. So this project officially launched this morning, as I said. If you go to the website, tso.ca, Composer in City, you'll find a request to everybody. The first thing we're asking is that people send in sounds of Toronto, sounds that anybody around the world would say, oh, that's really interesting. Maybe they'd even say it's from Toronto. You can send in audio, you can send in descriptions. So there's a website for that. We're on Facebook and Twitter. There are all kinds of ways you can participate. If you want to snap out your cameras, there's a QR code you can go to as well. The world premiere of this, we're starting today. We're going to work on this for the next months. The world premiere is on March 9th, 2013 in Roy Thompson Hall. The project just launched. You're the first ones to see it. We'd love it if you think of joining and participating. Please spread the word, since I know you've all got lots of friends. Thanks a lot.
Fabulous. Fabulous. And I want to thank Tod and all of the musicians. It was an improvisation of the moment and a very good one indeed. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.